Since I was a kid, Ming or Ming as we Chinese Thai call it, is that one random day of the year where we get up before sunrise, drive out to a far, far away place, and do lots of random things we don't usually do in our everyday life. So what is Ming really? The Ming festival, also known as Tomb Sweeping Day in English, is a traditional Chinese festival observed by Han Chinese. It falls on the first day of the fifth solar term of the traditional Chinese lunar calendar. This makes it the 15th day after the spring equinox, either 4th, 5th, or 6th of April in a given year. During Ming, Chinese families visit the tombs of their ancestors to clean the gravesites, pray to their ancestors, and make ritual offerings. Did I know all that because I was of Chinese descent? Well, partially. Did I also knew that because I spent like 3 hours googling everything I am about to say in this video and beating myself up for being a bad Chinese kid for not knowing all these? Yes. I probably should talk to my grandma a lot more. But it's fine. Well, we'll make it work, I guess. So, I've been wanting to document our Ming for a long while, since it's something that has always felt special to me, but I've never gotten to it because of things like fear of failure and other stupid stuff. But like the cliche privileged basic bitch I am, COVID did not force me out of my job or do anything to threaten my actual safety, but it did got me realizing how short and precious life is and how much I've taken for granted, and nudged me to finally get my ass up and do the shits I've been too scared to do. Gosh, I am a privileged basic bitch. Anyways, so I finally decided to document our Ming this year, which is ironic because COVID made it actually more difficult to do a lot of stuff we usually do when we go to Ming. But oh well, if not now, then when, right? We took off at 6 a.m., went to pick up my grandma and my aunt, and a bunch of ceremonial things that my grandma spent days prepping beforehand. For my grandma, Ming always starts 2 weeks before the actual day. After that, we took a 2-hour drive to the cemetery. The reason we had to start the day this early is because according to Chinese culture, all the respect paying and the offerings had to be done before midday, aka noon. I'm not exactly sure why. I might ask grandma later, but all I know is in Chinese culture, this rule is applied strictly to all kinds of ceremonies. When we arrived at the cemetery, the first thing we did was paying respect to the god of the land and the god of the sky. According to Chinese belief, everywhere you go, there is a land god and a sky god who guard the place. And before we do anything at all at that place, we must pay them respect and let them know we are here in peace. And paying respect can be anything from just bowing in front of their altar to throwing them a whole feast. And in this scenario, it's the latter. We throw them a whole feast. There's offerings of sweet and savory and fruits and snacks, all kinds of yummy stuff. One of my favorite things to see is the altar of the sky god. Unlike the other gods' altar that usually holds the statue of the gods, the sky god's altar is just an empty altar, but it is placed outside of the building. So when we are paying respect to the sky god, we are directly looking at him, the sky. And I don't know, man. Being the artsy brat I am, I can't help thinking that it's a very cool and clever design. After paying respect to the gods, we can go inside the cemetery, where the tombs are located, and do the main part of the event, which is visiting the graves of our great-grandparents, or Huang Sui, as we call it in Chinese. Huang Sui is translated the wind and the water in English, which are the two things that in Chinese belief affect a good living condition. One of the rules of a good Huang Sui is that the front has to be facing some kind of water, and the back must be facing some kind of mountain. This is why, unlike Western ones, Chinese graveyards are usually located far away from the cities so that the location meets those criteria. It might sound odd to specifically pick a place with a good living condition for someone who is not living anymore, but that's because in Chinese belief, like many other beliefs in the world, death is not the end. It's merely the beginning of a long and happy afterlife. At least they hope so. I can't say I myself believe that, but I sure do respect the people who do and the culture around that belief. Random fact break. While making this video, I needed to Google what the difference between a tomb and a grave were. And the answer was that a tomb is a structure above ground and a grave is underground. But the problem was that I still didn't know whether this thing I was talking about was a tomb or a grave, because it's kind of above ground, but it's also kind of underground. But yeah, I Googled a bit more, and yes, it's called a grave. Bet you didn't know that. If you do, that was 2 minutes of your life that you will never get back, and I am so sorry. So this is what a Chinese grave looks like. The back is where the dead is buried, and there is a large patio area for the family to sit down together and do ceremonies. The first thing we do is, you might guess from the name of the day, we sweep the floors of the patio, just so that it would be in a sittable condition. The plan here is to light incense and pay respect to the dead 3 times before noon, and in between each times, there are fun little commercial break stuff that I talk about later. After the floor is cleaned, then we would set up our ceremonial stuff and offerings. There are tons of offerings. There are offerings that are food, and there are offerings that are other things like golden paper, which symbolizes money. And during one of the commercial break I talked about, we would origami those papers in a shape like money. Yeah, I guess money used to look like a weird little boat back in the old days. Then we would burn those papers in a big bonfire as a symbol of sending them to heaven, to our dead relatives. These couple of years we've been trying to burn a bit less stuff for the sake of the environment, but these ceremonies mean a lot to our grandma. Young people like us may think all these are bullshit, but remember, grandma grew up in a very different world than the one we grew up in. Hence, she has very different values from ours, and we respect that. So this year, we kind of find a middle ground between us and grandma and the environment, and burn a little less stuff than we used to. Apart from setting stuff on fire, on another commercial break, we also get to decorate the top part of the hill with flowers and colored papers and the lit up firecrackers. When I was younger, my father and his brothers would be the ones who light the firecrackers. They'd hang the firecrackers on one of the wooden poles of the tent, use a stick of incense that is already lit to gently light the ends, and swiftly move away when they see the tiniest spark caught on, and let the fire do the rest. When I got a little older, they taught my male cousins to do it. I was kinda a daddy's girl, and thanks to film and media portraying girly things to be uncool,
I love the detail that you've managed to get in these calls.
And the I'm not like other girls trope, I was also a tomboyish girl. And thanks to all that, I also wanted to light the firecrackers to prove that I was as cool as my male cousins. I know that was stupid, but I was like 10. So that was how I became the first girl in my family to light the firecrackers. And I kept on doing it till now. I don't know, man. Maybe I just like setting stuff on fire. When the firecrackers are lit, everyone would cover their ears and turn their back away, because it is super loud and pieces can fly into your face and hurt you. But I remember every year, after the last loud crack has died down, I would lower my hands and turn around slowly to peek at the scene The smoke would start to curl up and settle. Red pieces of firecrackers would swirl softly with the wind before landing slowly on the pale green grass. Everything's quiet for a while after being so loud. For a moment, everything is peaceful and still. Then after a few seconds, someone would break the silence and we would go back to do our last round of respect paying and start packing up to leave, just so we can come back next year and do it all over again. I'd like to be clear here and say I am not at all religious, but I do enjoy going to these ceremonies, not because of the religious aspect, of course, but because of all the other aspects. Many Chinese millennials will probably think I'm weird, but I don't just go to these things to make my grandparents happy. I do genuinely enjoy it. To me, it's like going camping with my extended family. It means getting to reunite with my cousins and act like we're kids again. It means getting to spend time with my grandma. It means reminding myself once a year that happiness might lie in hustling, chasing the jobs of your dreams, or looking at the numbers roll up in your bank account. But it can also lie in much simpler things, like making the best origami golden paper, or having a laugh with these people who might not know every aspect of you, but they call you, as you call them, family.